The morning had only just begun to unspool its pale light across the crowded terminal when the old man appeared, thin, stooped, moving with the trembling determination of someone who had spent too many years forcing his body to cooperate. Travelers streamed around him like a tide, but he seemed to drift outside their rhythm, clutching two battered canvas bags that sagged heavily at his sides. His breath came in shallow pulls. His eyes flickered with something between exhaustion and quiet defiance, as though he knew he did not belong in the chaos of a modern station but refused to let it push him away. Most people barely noticed him. The world had taught them to keep their eyes forward, their pace brisk, their empathy rationed for emergencies. But one man, young, broad-shouldered, dressed in jeans and a weather jacket, caught the old man's struggle in his peripheral vision. He slowed. Something in the old man's shaking hand snagged at him, a reminder of his own grandfather hunched over grocery bags years ago, insisting he didn't need help even as the weight nearly toppled him. The young man's name was Rowan Hale, though no one in the terminal knew him, and no one would have expected him to be the hinge on which the morning would turn. Rowan stepped toward the older man without ceremony, letting instinct guide him. "Sir," he murmured, gentle enough not to startle. "May I help you with those?" His voice was steady, threaded with sincerity. The old man lifted his head slowly, as if the question itself required effort. His eyes, clouded but sharp beneath their haze, studied Rowan's face for a moment too long. Then, with a small nod, he surrendered one of the bags. The weight startled Rowan. The bag felt impossibly dense, as though filled with something more resolute than clothing or books. He didn't comment on it. He simply shifted it to his stronger hand and offered his arm. The old man accepted it, fingers gripping Rowan's sleeve with surprising force. People brushed past them, unaware that the smallest act of kindness was already redirecting the fate of the hour. They moved slowly toward a row of benches near the boarding platforms. Rowan guided him with patient steps, matching the older man's faltering rhythm. The old man's breaths grew steadier with each footfall, though his grip never loosened. When they reached the bench, Rowan eased the second bag down beside the first and helped the man settle carefully, as though lowering a fragile artifact into place. "Thank you," the man whispered. His voice was thin but carried a gravity that didn't match his feeble frame. "Most walk past." His accent was subtle, touched by regions Rowan couldn't place, somewhere distant, somewhere steeped in history rather than highways and terminals. Rowan shrugged with modesty, but the old man's eyes held him, anchoring him there longer than he expected. "It's nothing," Rowan said softly. "Just didn't want you to hurt yourself." A faint smile ghosted across the old man's lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. He looked toward the departure boards with an expression Rowan couldn't decipher: anticipation, fear, resignation. "Perhaps all three." "Sometimes," the man murmured, "the smallest help changes the direction of a whole day." Rowan didn't respond right away. He sensed layers beneath the statement, as if the old man were speaking from a lifetime of moments when help had come too late or not at all. Rowan sat beside him, compelled by something he couldn't name. He assumed the old man might want company until his strength returned. He didn't know he was sitting beside a storm gathering quietly around them. The terminal loudspeakers crackled overhead, announcing arrivals from distant cities. A child tugged at her mother's coat, demanding a treat from a nearby kiosk. The rhythm of ordinary life pulsed on. Yet Rowan felt a strange tension threading through the moment, a stillness nested inside the noise, as though the air itself was holding its breath. The old man pressed a trembling hand to his chest, as if steadying a thought rather than a heartbeat. "You remind me," he said, "of someone from long ago. Someone who made a choice to help when he didn't have to. It cost him greatly, but he never regretted it." Rowan offered a confused but warm half-smile. "Well, I hope this doesn't cost me anything." The old man's response was slow, deliberate. "Kindness always has a cost. The question is only when it arrives." Rowan chuckled softly, thinking the old man was being philosophical. But the look in those clouded eyes hinted at something more literal, something immediate. Rowan leaned back, unaware of the currents shifting around them, unaware that shadows were beginning to stretch toward their quiet corner of the terminal. He noticed the old man's hands then, scraped along the knuckles, faintly bruised, as though he had been in a struggle recently. "Are you all right?" Rowan asked. "Did something happen before you got here?" The old man hesitated. His throat bobbed with an unspoken truth, or perhaps a carefully measured lie. "Travel is unkind to the elderly," he finally said. But Rowan sensed the omission, the careful shaping of words that didn't quite answer the question. Still, he didn't push. He just nodded, letting silence settle between them. The kind of silence that feels like it belongs in a slow-turning film, just before something shifts. Across the terminal, near the main entrance, doors hissed open. A group of uniformed military officers stepped inside. Boots struck the polished floor with unified precision. Their eyes swept the space with tactical purpose, scanning faces, scanning bags, scanning corners where two strangers sat recovering from a burden exchanged only moments before. Rowan didn't notice them. But the old man did. His breath hitched, nearly imperceptible, but enough to ripple the stillness around them. He lowered his gaze quickly, as though hoping the weight of his stare might draw danger closer. Rowan leaned forward, concern sharpening. "Are you sure you're okay? You look." The old man gently placed his hand over Rowan's forearm. "In a moment," he whispered, "everything will look different." His voice no longer trembled. It carried the resolve of someone who knew exactly what was coming. And across the terminal, the officers began closing in. Rowan didn't notice the formation tightening across the terminal until the first officer's radio crackled sharply. A few travelers paused, glancing toward the entrance where the military presence grew heavier by the second. Their uniforms were distinct, dark, formal, carrying an authority that commanded immediate obedience. But to most onlookers, the officers were simply an oddity, a disruption in the mundane rhythm of a travel morning. To the old man beside Rowan, however, they were something else entirely. His spine stiffened. His breath faltered. His trembling fingers curled against his knees as though bracing for impact. Rowan followed his line of sight and felt a ripple of unease tighten in his chest. Something was unfolding, something that had nothing to do with him, yet he could feel its shadow expanding toward them like a slow-moving tide. The old man exhaled shakily, the sound nearly lost beneath the terminal's hum. "They have found me sooner than I expected," he whispered. Rowan blinked, turning to face him fully, confusion etched across his expression. "Who?" he asked, his voice hushed. But even as the question left his lips, he sensed the answer lived somewhere in the officer's synchronized movements, purposeful, unwavering, homing in. The old man didn't respond. Instead, he reached for his bag, the one Rowan had carried, and slid it closer to his feet with surprising urgency. He cast a quick glance around him, scanning exits, evaluating possibilities. His frailty remained visible, but beneath it Rowan glimpsed something else: calculation. Survival instinct. A kind of hardened resolve that did not belong to a helpless traveler. Rowan's pulse quickened. "Sir," he murmured, "what's happening? Do you need me to get someone? Do you need medical help?" The old man shook his head, though his breath trembled. "No. You have helped enough. More than you know." The officers split into two flanking groups, sweeping the terminal in widening arcs. Their gazes sharpened when they reached Rowan's row of benches. A woman in uniform raised her hand, signaling subtly to the others. Rowan's stomach tightened. This was no coincidence. This was no routine patrol. Something had marked their presence. Something or someone. The old man leaned closer, his voice low and deliberate. "Listen to me carefully. You must not panic, no matter what they say. And you must not let go of your calm." Rowan stared at him, incredulous. "Why would I panic? I haven't done anything." The old man nodded, though sorrow flickered in his eyes. "That has never stopped the world from accusing the innocent." Rowan swallowed hard. He looked again at the approaching officers. Their steps were precise, rehearsed. He felt the air shift, charged, expectant, humming with invisible tension. The old man rested one hand on the bench as though preparing to rise. "When they question you, speak truthfully. You helped a tired man. That is all you know." Rowan frowned deeper. "Question me? Why would they question me?" But the answer arrived before the old man could speak. The commanding officer, a tall figure with stern, unreadable features, strode toward them with a purposeful gait. Behind him, several others formed a perimeter, subtly guiding nearby travelers away. Conversations stuttered and died. Mothers pulled children closer. Even the overhead announcements fell momentarily irrelevant beneath the weight of approaching authority. Rowan rose instinctively to his feet, unsure whether to defend the old man or distance himself. The officer's eyes fixed first on Rowan, then on the trembling figure seated beside him. "Sir," the officer said, addressing Rowan, "step away from the gentleman, please." The old man lifted his chin, his breath shallow but defiant. Rowan hesitated, glancing uncertainly between them, before taking a slow step to the side. The officer continued, "We need to speak with him immediately." Rowan felt heat creep up his neck. "Is he in danger?" he asked. The officer didn't look at him. "That depends." Two officers flanked the old man now, speaking to him in quiet but firm tones. The old man answered softly, voice threaded with fatigue. Rowan strained to hear but caught only fragments, words like artifact, custody, and violation. His mind raced. None of it made sense. The commanding officer finally turned his full attention to Rowan. "Sir, did you assist this man with his belongings?" Rowan nodded slowly. He looked like he needed help. "I carried one of his bags to the bench." "That's all." The officer's stare bore into him, dissecting every syllable. "Did he give you anything? Did he say anything unusual? Did he ask you to transport or hide anything?" Rowan's heartbeat thudded in his ears. "No. Nothing like that. He just needed help walking." A flicker of calculation passed across the officer's expression. "Did you look inside the bag?" "No," Rowan answered quickly. The officer nodded once. "For your sake, it's better that you did not." Behind them, one of the soldiers unzipped the old man's heavy canvas bag. The old man inhaled sharply, not in fear, but in resignation, as if he had always known this moment would find him. The contents of the bag were hidden from Rowan's view, but whatever the soldier saw made him stiffen. He called out to the commander in clipped, urgent tones. The commander glanced inside, jaw tightening. He issued orders immediately, rapid and precise. More officers flooded the area, their hands hovering near their holsters. The terminal buzzed with frightened murmurs. Rowan took a small step backward. "What did he do?" he whispered. The old man turned toward him then, eyes shimmering with something between apology and gratitude. "Young man," he said, voice steadier than before, "you saw only a tired old traveler. And that is all you were ever meant to see." Rowan opened his mouth to speak, but the officer cut in sharply. "Step away from him. Now." Alarm surged through Rowan. "He didn't do anything while I was with him," he protested. "He just needed help." The officer's expression remained severe. "This man is wanted for the unlawful removal of classified archaeological material belonging to a foreign government. He has evaded authorities for weeks. His possession of restricted artifacts poses potential cultural and geopolitical risks." Rowan stared, stunned. "He's an archaeologist." The officer shook his head. "Not anymore." The old man closed his eyes briefly, as though absorbing the weight of truths finally spoken aloud. Then he looked at Rowan with a calm that defied the chaos closing in. "Remember," he whispered, "kindness is never wasted, even when its cost finds you sooner than expected." Rowan felt the words settle heavily in his chest, sinking past disbelief into something more painful, a recognition that he had become tangled in a story far larger than himself. The officers closed ranks. The old man raised his hands. And the morning's stillness shattered. Rowan stood frozen as the officers tightened their formation around the old man, but the world around him seemed to move in disjointed fragments, shouts echoing from distant corners, the shuffle of boots on polished floors, the faint rustle of travelers retreating from the escalating tension. His breath constricted in his throat. He had never been close to an arrest before, let alone one involving military personnel and classified artifacts. Yet there he stood, tethered to the moment by a simple act of kindness he could neither undo nor understand. The old man's bags, once innocuous in his hands, now felt like weights tied around his conscience. He watched as the officers lifted the canvas bundle carefully, reverently, as though it contained something fragile enough to break the world if mishandled. Rowan remembered its surprising heaviness and felt a shiver run through him. Whatever the old man had been carrying, it was no ordinary contraband. One officer approached him again, a different one this time, a woman with keen eyes and a scar cutting a soft curve across her cheek. "Mr. Hale," she said, reading his name from a temporary ID slipped into his jacket pocket. "We need your cooperation." Her tone was firm but not hostile, though tension coiled beneath every syllable. Rowan swallowed, nodding. "I've told your commander everything. I don't know anything about what he was carrying. I didn't look." She studied him carefully. "That may be. But your proximity to a suspect transporting restricted relics makes you a potential witness. And witnesses can become liabilities if they misunderstand what they've seen." Her wording sent a cold pulse through him. "I didn't misunderstand anything," Rowan insisted, though doubt coiled inside him. "He asked for help. That's all that happened." The officer's gaze softened just enough to register as human. "People who run from governments often ask for help," she said. "They rely on the kindness of strangers. They know it buys them minutes. Sometimes hours. Sometimes escape." Rowan shook his head. "He didn't run. He could barely walk." The officer's eyes flickered toward the old man, who now stood with wrists bound gently but firmly. "Even the frailest can carry danger," she replied quietly. "Sometimes especially them." The old man turned then, hearing her words though they weren't meant for him. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between sorrow and acceptance. He gave Rowan a faint, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't gratitude this time. It was something heavier, like a farewell he could not speak aloud. Rowan felt heat sting behind his eyes. He didn't know this man, not truly, yet he felt the weight of losing something unnamed. As the officers prepared to escort the old man away, the commander returned, stepping close enough that Rowan could feel the authority radiating from his stillness. "Mr. Hale," he said, "we will need a full statement from you. You are not under arrest. But you are not free to leave until the situation is assessed." Rowan nodded again, though his hands trembled. "I'll cooperate. Just tell me something. Is he dangerous?" The commander's jaw tightened. "Danger is a matter of perspective." Rowan frowned. "That isn't an answer." The commander sighed, gaze drifting toward the bag being sealed for transport. "The man you assisted is known internationally for the excavation of culturally significant relics. 4 decades, he worked under multiple governments with shifting loyalties. Some call him a hero. Others call him a thief. But today, he is a man in possession of an artifact removed illegally from protected territory." Rowan absorbed this slowly. The old man, frail, breathless, trembling, had once been something else entirely. Someone who had walked the line between preservation and plunder. Someone who had spent years in deserts, jungles, ruins. Someone who had risked everything for objects that whispered of ancient worlds. Rowan stared at him with new eyes. Yet the image of the exhausted traveler needing help remained just as vivid. "He didn't seem dangerous to me," Rowan murmured. "He seemed tired." "Even the tired can be guilty," the commander replied. "And even the guilty can be kind." The officers began to lead the old man toward a secured exit. He moved slowly, not because of the restraints but because his body demanded it. Yet there was dignity in his posture, a quiet refusal to be reduced to the accusations encircling him. Rowan felt a strange ache rise in him. He didn't want the moment to end like this, without clarity, without truth, without understanding what he had stepped into. "Wait," he called impulsively. The officers paused. The commander turned with restrained irritation. "Mr. Hale," Rowan ignored him, addressing the old man directly. "Why were you traveling alone? Why carry something that dangerous by yourself?" The old man lifted his gaze. His eyes were wet with unshed truths. "Because the people who once walked beside me are gone. Because the lines between right and wrong blur when history is threatened. Because sometimes the world values power over preservation." Rowan stepped forward instinctively. "Then why risk strangers? Why risk me?" A faint smile touched the old man's lips. "I did not risk you. I trusted you. There is a difference." The commander ended the exchange with a curt gesture. The officers resumed their escort. But just before the old man disappeared behind the secured doors, he turned his head one last time. "Rowan Hale," he said softly, Remember what you carried. Not the weight, but the meaning. It will matter. The words lodged like a riddle in Rowan's chest. He opened his mouth to respond, but the door shut with a resonant metallic thud, severing the moment. Silence stretched around him, thick with uncertainty. Travelers resumed their movements cautiously, casting lingering glances at the now emptied space. Rowan exhaled shakily, running both hands over his face. He didn't feel heroic. He didn't feel foolish. He felt changed, as though the morning's events had carved a small but permanent shift inside him. The officer with the scar returned to his side. "You did what many wouldn't," she said quietly. "Kindness is rarely wasted. But it is often complicated." Rowan nodded, not trusting his voice. She motioned for him to follow. "Come. There are questions we must ask before we let you go." Rowan hesitated, glancing again at the door through which the old man had vanished. Something in him whispered that the story wasn't over, that the truth lay buried beneath layers he had not yet been permitted to see. And as he followed the officers into a small interrogation room, one thought pulsed through him with quiet inevitability. Something about that artifact, about that old man's desperation, was far bigger than the morning itself. And somehow he was already part of it. Rowan sat in the narrow interrogation room, its humming fluorescent light casting a sterile pallor across the metal table between him and the officers. The walls seemed to press inward, as if urging him to speak, to fill the silence with explanations he didn't have. The officer with the scar, Lieutenant Maravas, paced slowly behind him, her steps measured, deliberate, as though circling an idea rather than a witness. The commander stood near the door, arms folded, watching Rowan with the wary attentiveness of someone who had learned never to assume innocence or guilt too quickly. Rowan clasped his hands together, grounding himself in the cool surface of the table. "I told you everything," he said softly. "Every detail I remember." Voss paused behind him. "Memory is slippery under pressure," she murmured. "Sometimes truth hides behind what we think we saw." Rowan shook his head. "There was nothing hidden." He struggled. "I helped. That's all." But even as he spoke, the old man's last words echoed through him. "Remember what you carried. Not the weight, but the meaning." Rowan clenched his jaw. Meaning implied intention, and he still didn't understand any of it. The commander stepped forward. "Mr. Hale," he began, "the artifact in that bag is not merely valuable. It is dangerous." Rowan blinked, bewildered. "Dangerous how? It's a relic, isn't it?" Voss exchanged a glance with the commander, silent conversation passing between them. Then she pulled a small tablet from her pocket and tapped the screen. She turned it toward Rowan. A photograph filled the display, a carved stone disc, cracked at the edges, etched with symbols Rowan didn't recognize. Its surface glimmered faintly, as though light clung to it unnaturally. "This," Voss said, "is what he carried." Rowan's brow furrowed. "It looks ancient." "It is," the commander replied. "And it belongs to a protected site currently under dispute by multiple governments. Removing it was illegal. Transporting it was reckless. But possessing it," he exhaled. "Possessing it places the carrier in immediate danger." Rowan frowned deeper. "Danger from whom?" Voss tapped the tablet again, zooming in on the delicate inscriptions. This disc was part of a set, 6 pieces long thought lost. But one resurfaced last month. And when it did, the people who had sought it for decades resurfaced too. A chill ran through Rowan. "You mean traffickers?" "Worse," Voss replied. "People who believe the disc holds prophetic value, power, influence." Rowan stared at the photograph, feeling the world tilt slightly. "And the old man took it?" "He didn't take it," Voss corrected quietly. "He saved it." According to intercepted communications, the relic was about to fall into extremist hands. He stole it back, intending to deliver it to a neutral institution. Rowan's pulse quickened. "Then why arrest him?" The commander leaned closer. "Because saving one relic by breaking a dozen laws still breaks a dozen laws. Because we cannot allow rogue operatives to operate without oversight. Because his past is tangled with decisions that cost lives. And because we don't know if we can trust his intentions." Rowan swallowed. He didn't seem malicious. Neither do storms, Voss said gently. But they destroy all the same. Silence settled again. Rowan stared at the table, trying to reconcile the frail man he had supported with the renegade archaeologist painted before him. "So what happens now?" he whispered. Voss folded her arms. "We question him. We test the artifact. We determine whether he acted alone. And we protect anyone he may have unknowingly involved." Rowan looked up sharply. "Protect?" The commander nodded. "The moment you carried that bag, you became part of a trajectory larger than your morning commute." Rowan rubbed his forehead. "Are you saying someone might come after me?" Voss's silence told him enough. The commander pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "Mr. Hale, we need you to recount again exactly what he said. Every sentence. Every tone. Every hesitation." Rowan exhaled slowly, summoning the memory like a scene lit by flickering candlelight. "He said, he didn't expect them so soon. He told me not to panic when they questioned me. He said kindness has a cost, and that I should speak truthfully, because I only saw a tired old traveler." Voss crouched beside him, eyes intense. "Anything else?" Rowan hesitated. He said I reminded him of someone who once helped him. Someone who paid dearly for it." The commander and Voss exchanged another glance, this one sharper, heavier. "Did he mention a name?" "No. Did he pass anything to you? Even accidentally?" Rowan shook his head. "Nothing." A knock rapped against the door. Another officer stepped inside, holding a clipboard. "Sir," he said to the commander, "the initial analysis confirms the disk's authenticity. And we found something else." He handed over a photograph. Rowan strained to see, but the commander kept it angled away. His jaw tensed. Voss rose slowly. "What is it?" The commander lowered the photo. "The disk is only half of what he carried." Rowan felt his breath hitch. "Half." Voss turned to the reporting officer. "What else was in the bag?" The officer hesitated. "A note, addressed to Rowan Hale." Rowan's heart slammed against his ribs. "What?" Voss's gaze whipped to him. "You're certain?" The officer nodded. "It's sealed. We haven't opened it." The commander stepped toward Rowan. "Do you have any explanation for why a fugitive smuggler would write you a note?" Rowan shook his head hard. "I swear, I don't know him. I've never met him before today." Voss approached the clipboard, studying the attached envelope. "Handwriting matches samples of his journals," she murmured. "He wrote this recently." Rowan felt the room contract around him. "What does it say?" The commander placed the envelope on the table, but didn't slide it forward. "We will open it. But you will read it with us present." Rowan nodded, pulse thundering. Voss took a deep breath. "Mr. Hale, whatever is written inside may reveal why he sought your help, and why he allowed you to carry something so heavily guarded." The commander reached for the envelope. Rowan braced himself as the seal cracked open, the sound slicing through the tight silence. Inside, a single sheet of aged paper waited, folded with trembling care, as though protecting more than words. The paper trembled as the commander unfolded it, the creases releasing a faint scent of dust and age, like something lifted out of a forgotten archive. Rowan leaned forward unconsciously, breath shallow, as the thin sheet landed on the metal table between them. Voss read first, her eyes tracking the looping script with growing intensity. Then she slid it toward Rowan. "Read," she said softly. Rowan steadied his hands and lowered his gaze. To the young man who lifted what he did not yet understand, the letter began, its handwriting wavering but deliberate. "If you are reading this, it means the officers have found me, and the morning has taken the turn I expected. Know this, I chose you. Not for your strength, but for your sincerity." Rowan blinked, heart tripping. The words felt impossibly intimate, as though spoken directly into the deepest part of him. "You helped without hesitation. And in a world that has forgotten the value of instinctive kindness, that makes you rare. You remind me of a student I once taught, one who believed history was worth protecting, even at personal cost. He died helping me retrieve a fragment like the one you carried today." Rowan inhaled sharply. Voss's eyes softened. I vowed I would never again involve someone undeserving. Yet there you were, offering your arm before I could even ask. The letter continued in lines that seemed to pulse with urgency. The disk in my possession is one of 6. Together, they form a tablet capable of revealing an ancient astronomical map lost for centuries. Some seek it for knowledge, others for power. I stole it not to keep, but to prevent its misuse. Rowan felt his stomach clench. But my time is ending. My health betrays me faster than my enemies do. I needed someone to help me take my final step into custody without suspicion, someone who could walk beside me long enough to ensure I reached the only authorities I trust. And you, Rowan Hale, were the only person in that terminal whose face held no malice. Rowan paused, throat tightening. He used me, he whispered. Yes, Voss replied softly, and also protected you. Rowan lowered his eyes to the letter once more. You are not in danger, though others may believe you no more than you do. Do not fear them. They watch you now because they do not understand why I wrote this. But you understand kindness. That is enough. The last line struck Rowan with the weight of a confession. If the world learns anything from this relic, let it be that goodness, quiet, uncalculated goodness, still changes the course of things. You changed mine this morning. For that, I end my journey with peace. When he finished reading, Rowan let the letter fall gently to the table. His eyes burned. The room felt too small to contain the swell of conflicting emotions, betrayal, gratitude, sorrow, and the strange burden of being chosen by someone he barely knew. Voss exhaled slowly. He trusted you more than he trusted us, she murmured. The commander rubbed a hand over his jaw. Or he wanted to ensure we treated him as more than a criminal. Rowan looked up sharply. Was he? The commander hesitated. He was complicated. It wasn't an answer, but Rowan understood. Some lives defied simple labels. Before any of them could speak again, another knock came, sharp, urgent. An officer stepped inside. Sir, the old man. He's asking for Rowan Hale. Rowan froze. The commander's brow furrowed. He's in custody. Why request the civilian? He insists, the officer replied. He says he will only speak once more, and only to him. A hush fell over the room. Rowan felt gravity pull at him, drawing him toward a moment he hadn't expected but somehow knew he couldn't refuse. Voss placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You don't have to go in alone. Rowan shook his head. I think he meant me to. The commander studied Rowan for a long moment before nodding once. Escort him. Stay within sight. If anything feels wrong, we intervene immediately. The holding area lay deep within the terminal's restricted corridors. The air grew cooler, quieter, the hum of public life fading behind layers of concrete and steel. When Rowan stepped into the observation room separated by a glass pane, he saw the old man seated at a table. No restraints now, just 2 guards standing at a respectful distance. His frail hands rested on the metal surface, palms open, as though he were surrendering not to authority but to truth. When he looked up and saw Rowan, his eyes softened. Rowan entered the adjoining interview room slowly, the door shutting behind him with a muted click. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the old man smiled faintly. You read it, he murmured. Rowan nodded. Why me? The old man studied him, his gaze gentle but piercing. Because the world bends too easily toward suspicion. But your instinct is to reach out, not recoil. That instinct may save you one day. Or someone else. Rowan sat across from him. You should have told me the truth. The old man's expression folded into regret. If I had, you would have walked away. And I needed someone who would stay. Rowan swallowed. You put me in danger. Less danger than you imagine, the old man whispered. And more purpose than you know. Rowan leaned back, overwhelmed. What happens now? The old man's breath shuddered. Now, they will protect the relic. Others will come for it, people more ruthless than the officers who found me. But they will not reach it easily. He paused, wincing as his chest tightened. I wanted to tell them everything. But there is one truth only you deserve to hear." Rowan's heartbeat quickened. What truth? The old man looked at him with a tenderness that felt like an inheritance. The disk is only half a map. The other half is still hidden. And the person who can help find it is not a soldier, not a thief, not a runaway archaeologist. He held Rowan's gaze. It is someone who believes that helping a stranger matters. Rowan shook his head. "I'm not. You are more," the old man whispered, "because you choose to be." His breath weakened. A guard stepped forward, but the old man raised a trembling hand. "Let me finish." He looked again at Rowan. "If you ever receive a letter from one of my old colleagues, open it. The world may need someone like you." Then, with a slow exhale, he closed his eyes. His shoulders sank, his features softened, and the tension drained from his face like a tide receding from shore. A medic rushed in, but Rowan knew. The old man had reached the end of his journey, on his own terms, after speaking his final truth. Later, when Rowan stepped out of the holding area, dawn had begun to brighten the distant windows. Voss approached quietly. "He passed peacefully," she said. Rowan nodded, unable to speak. The commander joined them. "His note to you stays in your possession. It's evidence, but also something else." Rowan looked up. "A warning." "Perhaps," the commander said. "Or a calling." As Rowan walked back into the terminal, the world resumed its ordinary pulse, travelers hurrying, announcements echoing, life moving on as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Yet Rowan felt changed, as though the old man had pressed an invisible relic into his hands, one made not of stone, but of purpose. He stepped into the morning light, the letter tucked safely against his heart. And as the sun rose, Rowan understood the truth the old man had lived and died by. Sometimes the smallest kindness reveals the largest destiny. And sometimes a single moment, lifting a stranger's heavy bags, becomes the first step on a path you were never meant to ignore.